Welcome again to Wickerson Studios. I am plugging through the GH Python book that I have, and it's going very well, but I'm finding the exercises as they do get more complicated, I'm more dependent on those scripts to share them. And in order to protect the intellectual property of those scripts, I think it's best to return to the basics and go back through what exactly is being learned. So what I'm going to do is work with my Patreon memberships, and although I already have set up tons of videos for free on YouTube. You will notice there's a few playlists that are specific to the Patreon members, which I've started to do about 15 videos, which are on there. They're within the Patreon site. And with that, I've actually gone in and made, I thought I had it here. Oh boy. I definitely have, let me jump back into here and just jump into GitHub. Basically GitHub, you can see that there's many files that are open, and I have a Patreon membership site that has for those members the GH files that are associated with the book. And I was being very creative, but things were getting incredibly complex as I plugged through it fairly quickly. So I'm going to start a second Patreon repository, and this one's going to be back to the basics. So basically Patreon membership only, GH Python node basics. The first ones I'll make free just to get people interested in what's happening, and I'll build those files and put them on 10 at a time like I did with the older scripts I was doing. And an example of what's happening is right here. I'm in Rhino 7, and I'm putting in dead simple scripts. So I've imported Rhino script syntax as RS, and I actually went in and put in the Rhino geometry as RG because I did want to make a shift from GUID dependent functions into geometry functions and using the Rhino common language. But you can see the script is pretty simple, specific to this point. And what I did was, instead of hard coding in any numbers here, which is the example in the text, I put in the variables XYZ and PQR. And then I did something playful with it, unique. And what you'll see is I put in a gene pool here and exploded that, which might be good to use my plugin here. Just give me a second. Why is that giving me trouble? Oh, because I'm a fool and this is actually a video. I've got to go back into my Rhino window. Oh, that should be fine to go to the parameters, and I should be able to pull that out. So I basically have an exploded tree, and what I did was I grafted all of that data that I can arrange. So we have a final lofted form that I can throw through a randomized list and generate these very interesting geometries, but I also can have a lot of control over those geometries. So as I have that in here, I can bring that down. I can play with that. I can play with this. And what I brought in as an interesting point, if you think of building geometries this way and having such wild control because of the numbers, I enjoy sculpting this way. I think it's very fun. It's like painting with fabric. You'll see on the top item, I actually left my list item. I did not input this as a single item list. I left it as a single item list, but I brought it out as a list without grafting it. So I've taken all the digits. If you look here, you've actually got 6 numbers to play with that then are applied to the YZ and PQR. And I built a circle just using center point 0, so I actually can build all these different geometries as I play randomly with this. And it's a sense of kind of wire modeling. I really want the sculptors of my program to understand that the digital modeling doesn't have to be that non-intuitive as it would be if you were just playing with wires and moving them around. So simple loft applied to a Python script, and you're able to make these kind of forms. And when you find one that you kind of like, if we jump back into all of these and do a zoom extends all, which I love so much, you can take them out and do a quick bake. You have a fairly interesting form, and then you quickly can generate another one. And what's nice with the gene pool is you don't have to slide around your sliders. You just do a randomization if you want a subtle change in what you're doing. And then you can go back in here and take a bake, pull that one out as well, and that one's a little changed. And then if you want something drastic, you can go in here and pull the 100%. I like this as an optimization tool, so let's see what that one did. We have to pull it back in. Now, what happened to my points? What did I do? Oh my gosh. I did something quick. Let me grab the randomization. Not all work. So if you're playing with one and it gets a little wild, you might want to rein it back in somehow. Pull that in. It might be this high count here, and grab another geometry. So it breaks at certain points, like any optimization in the gene pool, which is the function of that. But here we go. We have 3 nice shapes. I can pull them back out, I've generated them. I can leave the Grasshopper. It's dependent on a very simple Python script. You're coming to understand how to write it in its most basic form. And here you go. And I'm going to actually leave the Grasshopper model, look at my three forms, and think, would they be useful to do anything with afterwards? Obviously, they're not watertight. I'd have to extend them. I could do something else. But for me, this is just a wonderful way to get to understanding and thinking of sculpting a little differently. I'll spread this one out a little more. I'll pop this one a little bit this way, and we'll go back into Grasshopper and say, okay, there's our wire model again. Let's make some subtle changes. Very simple tools. The gene pool all the way through. You can keep it in order if you think that helps to build a geometry, keeping your numbers kind of small. I like that kind of bowl shape there, so I'm going to pull this one out of the way. I like that kind of ladle twisting action on a surface. But I know enough with CAD programs that you kind of lose control over what your geometries are doing when you're running functions. But this is allowing you to see the breakdown of it right down into its detailed. And you can get in here and do the simple maths and functions that you had, like 2 times x, see what that does as a test. You can see that makes a quick adjustment to it. And you can do any of the maths that you actually might want to do, but I'm going to leave it the way it was. So that's the type of exercises I'm going to put on when it calls for back to the basis. That'll be the first one, and that is the GH-Python node, and I will save that as file save as in here as 001. And then if I wanted to make a change on it or do something else different, it'll be under the GH-Python. I think it was a longer name. There it is, Patreon, membership only, Rhino 7, GH-Python, Wickerson Studios, back to the basics. All the other ones are still there that I was going through and getting into the algorithms very quickly. But like I said, as soon as things get kind of complex, I want to change it. I want to simplify it and allow people in there. And these will be little snippets and tools to get you working in the Python node, condensing everything to one script and doing a little creative pre and post Python node shenanigans, which I enjoy so much. And this is for maybe the intermediate or the basic Grasshopper user that's actually had some fun building their nodes and their snippets and what they end up doing in any way, whether it's your, if I go to my surface tool, you'll see I have a couple of test items, cluster ABC and untrimmed surface from UV count. I was doing that, but now I'm finding myself packing more and more into the GH-Python node because it's incredibly powerful when you get into recursion and fractals and iterations and all these wonderful things. So I'm going right back to the basics of this. And the next one we'll get into will be just playing a little bit, well, maybe not with number, dealing with arrays of points, which we started to introduce here. You'll want to have a little understanding of fancy wires to make this useful for yourself, but I'm doing it for those Patreon members that I have that are wanting to dig deeper into the GH-Python node. So I hope that makes sense. 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes of kind of outlining it and being creative with it, and that's how I'm going to uniquely make it mine under Wickerson Studios Patreon M. Wickerson account. So please sign up and join. I'll share the videos with you initially for everyone, and then I'll slowly tuck away those GH-Python scripts as we start to make tens and hopefully tens and hundreds of them as I go through the work and creatively start to apply pretty much the base that comes with Grasshopper, Mac, and Windows, even though I am very excited about these new subdivision tools that are there in Rhino 7, and hopefully I can start applying those and having some fun with it. Thanks very much for watching.